Good afternoon. Happy Thursday. How is everyone doing out there? Welcome back to another week of drafting some underdog. It's been a couple weeks since we've been back in the Battle Royale streets. Last, 3-4 weeks have been quite fun with playoff best ball. Even last week, got to do some of the gauntlet and mitten returns. Those are going pretty well. I've got a few teams that I really like that are still alive in the conference championships, giving me a chance at this. Overall, we'll see. Lot of strong Cincy and San Francisco combo teams. Makes sense because of how the playoffs have played out, with San Francisco doing so well in the wild card, Cincy doing well in the divisional. But if Philly or if KC or if both of them end up winning this week, it's going to be interesting to see what kind of teams were able to survive through this treacherous rounds and those group pods and all. But today, always here to add. If you have questions, anything about playoff basketball, we can chat. We can talk through it. I can answer any. But I think strategy-wise, the focus is really going to be on Battle Royale today because they still have a tournament out there. There's only a $5 entry, pretty large tournament. It is $225,000 in prizes with only $5 entry, $25K to first. So we're going to see if we can take that down. And there's some unique aspects to this specific Battle Royale that we haven't seen previously. So I'll focus kind of a little more than normal on the strategy aspect, and then we'll still dive into a draft or two at the end. But let's think. So what are some of the major things that we need to talk through for this? One difference is so positions-wise. Positions for this is going to be one QB, one running back, two wide receivers, one tight end, and one flex. With that, I think it's interesting where this isn't your normal 6-person, draft. These are only 4. Obviously doing that because there's only 4 teams. We want to make sure everyone has a starting QB. And right off the bat, that's probably one where, hey, we have rankings for these. If you're an ETR subscriber, go check them out. We put the rankings up and you can see the top 3 QBs are definitely a tier above the rest. And with Mahomes looking good, with the line for KC moving from +2.5 down to 1-point favorites in the past 24 hours, him getting a full practice in, videos coming out of him jogging, looks like he's going to be solid. So really, those 3 QBs really do stand out among the others. And all 3 of those have pretty strong stack partners that are getting drafted in the first, if not second round. So we're going to consistently see those 3 QBs continue to go in the first 2 rounds. And obvious here, if you end up missing out on one of those 3, you're going to end up with Brock Purdy. You don't need to rush. You can wait until the very last pick of the draft because no one else can take a QB. And you should be, going through that draft considering, okay, I know I'm going to be drafting Purdy. What are the stacks that I should be building for that? 1 running back, 2 wide receivers doesn't change things too much. The tight end one is interesting because of 2 components here. One is there are really 4 tight ends that are the starting tight ends for all the teams that are pretty solid tight ends. Like we've got a really strong tight end grouping still alive. Kelsey getting his 47% target share last week was insane. We're going to continue to see his usage, his playoff usage just be out of the, off the chains, off the charts. Then you have Kittle and Goddard, whose projection isn't that great, but their ceiling outcomes are still very, very high. And then Hayden Hurst is the 4th. From a strategy aspect here, yes, every team needs to have a tight end. However, you can also have multiple tight ends because you can draft a tight end in your flex spot. And what we're seeing is that if you look at Hayden Hurst as the 4th tight end, his projection compared to some of the other flex options out there, it's a pretty attractive flex option compared to someone like maybe Juju or MVS or some of those kind of, lower one-off guys. So keep an eye out, like the Purdy one. If you don't get a top 3 QB, you can take Purdy the last pick. If you don't get a top 3 tight end, it's probably, it's not smart to say, oh, okay, well, I'll just get Hayden Hurst later on at the very end, because more likely someone's actually going to take him, especially if someone drafted Burrow, and you don't have Burrow and someone else wants to say, hey, there's another, potential stack partner. So keep an eye on that. I do think we'll get a little into kind of from a strategy-wise, but there's probably some value actually to going 2 tight ends. We'll talk about that later as well. So that's mainly from the positional aspect. 4 players, 4 people in each draft. They go quickly. You're drafting those 6 positions. Yeah, 6. That's right. There. Okay. Also, From a larger strategy angle, I think, when we do normal battle royales, you've got a full slate to choose from where, going for your stack, maybe a bring back. We're thinking about how we can get unique. We're thinking about whether it's uniqueness from getting ADP values or getting people that aren't being drafted much. There is no ADP for this tournament. If you look through, it is just projections. Why is that? I believe it's because this tournament is so much different than what else they're running otherwise, and they don't have ADP across like specific contests. Maybe it's something they're trying out, but I think it's more of that. So we need to think, how can we use this to our advantage? Well, the majority of people are going to be doing one of two things. One is just drafting directly off projections and the projections that are built into their app. So we should keep that in mind for two reasons. One is, as we're drafting, what players are more likely to get taken between your now and your next pick? The ones that have the higher projection. So we're seeing that across the board. The second is, before, we were seeing, this person's drafted at ADP of 35.7, 35.2, 34.8. We could estimate how often that meant they were being drafted. We don't have that now. So how do I kind of adapt that? Well, one is we can think of, okay, we can still find ways to get unique, because when you get to that last round, you can see here are the top projected players. They have like maybe projections around like 7, 8, 9, 10, maybe. Those guys are often kind of the last picks in the drafts. If you go to someone who has a projection maybe of that 4, 5, 6 aspect, those are the ones that are less likely to be drafted, because we know and we've seen that people are drafting directly off the projections. The lower the projection, the less likely they're being drafted. The second is, I think, when we saw the ADP previously and we knew that someone was being drafted 35.7, it was an easy target for the sharper drafters to be like, hey, these are the ones that I want to go for because they're contrarian. When we don't have that familiarity, we don't have that kind of confidence in that they're being drafted very low, I think we humans, people drafting, are less likely to actually go take the worst player, because I'm thinking, okay, the things that I know is that this player is a worse player than this and their projection is lower. I think this person is being drafted less than this person, but I don't actually know that. So now I'm trying to be, to do the right thing. I'm supposed to take the worst player and hope that they're being drafted lower. I don't know. I think that sounds uncomfortable. I think a lot of people aren't going to do that. A lot of people are just going to be, you know what? I don't actually know who's getting drafted worse. I'm just going to take this player because I know it's the better player, and I'm going to hope that they're not being drafted that much. I think that's the scared way to go about it. I don't think that's right. I think we should lean into that uncertainty, lean into that we don't know what their ADP is, and be more willing to draft those one-offs. I mean, we saw what Kenneth Gainwell was able to do last week. If this was the same kind of structure right now, Kenneth Gainwell, but not kind of last week, would not be being drafted much. Even Boston Scott got a touchdown last week. These are the players in a 2-game sample size we want to take some risks on. And I'll touch on that 2-game aspect because I think it's important. We want to be painting a picture of what could happen with each draft. So, for example, let's say we know Philly and San Francisco, 2 of the best defenses in the league. Maybe that's a low-scoring game. Maybe both QBs bust. If you drafted one of those QBs in this, you're out of it. Maybe, those stacks are going to be busted too. Maybe there's a one-off receiving TD. Maybe there's a one-off rushing TD. But for the most part, that game, low scoring, and the Kansas City one turns into a shootout. Not saying that's going to happen, but that's one possible scenario. And based off how your first couple picks go, maybe you started off with the Mahomes Kelsey or the Burrow Chase. Maybe that's the outcome you want to play for in this scenario. So you only go with Kansas City and Cincinnati players, and maybe you add in a Miles Sanders, or maybe you add in start off with that Christian McCaffrey at the top, or maybe it's Elijah Mitchell, or maybe it's just one Debo, because Debo got that one big play in the game, but that was kind of it. Build into, tell that story with just each individual draft, paint that picture. And so I think as you go through these drafts, you can start thinking, okay, you know what? Maybe it's actually going to be both are going to be high scoring. That's a hard one to plan for, because then you just got to hit the nuts, and the nuts are usually correlating with the best players. But maybe the play then is, hey, it's high scoring, and this one-off player who's unique was the one we'll get to. I'll give kind of my takes on a team-by-team basis real quick, just as a high level, because I think I don't know, it's good for discussion as we start thinking through how I'm approaching each team. So early game is Philly, San Francisco. For Philly, honestly, I think this is just kind of a spray and pray. Anything can happen here. You could go with a naked Jalen Hurts. You could go with the single stack. You could go with a double stack of both wide receivers or one wide receiver and a tight end. I think all those options are in play for Philly. And then even with the running backs, Miles and Gainwell, both still in play. I think, we shouldn't really think of Gainwell like we thought of him last week. My guess is he's probably being overdrafted in these because of what he did last week. The only way, I just don't think we should be expecting it's been very rare for running backs to have any success against San Francisco, but B, the reason why Gainwell got so much play likely is because they were up so much on the Giants. So sorry, no great insights on Philly other than, hey, feel comfortable just trying to get as many pieces in as many variations. San Francisco, if you're getting Purdy, I think you definitely have to stack here. I think it's probably even smart at times to go with a double stack. Purdy's not getting it done on the ground. Purdy's not getting it done, with rushing touchdowns. So if we're going with the Purdy, I think either Ayuk, Kittle, Debo, all are strong plays. I think you can obviously combine it with a CMC as well with his pass catching role. I think it's if Purdy's actually going to be a high enough scoring QB compared to the other, Burrow, Mahomes, Hurts, all high scoring. If your Purdy's going to get there high enough for you to go up the leaderboard, it definitely needs to be with at least one stack partner, and very possible it's two. Okay, Mahomes, 48% target share last week for Travis Kelce. If you look at how Travis Kelce has done the past couple of years in the playoffs, he is just absolutely featured. And this year is no different. One game, obviously, but I'm expecting that to continue. So if you can get the Mahomes Kelce stack, you 100% want to grab it. It's not that easy because a lot of times Kelce's still going in the first round with, and I think and Mahomes is still, being sniped, I think, not just with Kelce. So if you can get it, go for it. I don't think you need to double stack here as well, but I think it is an opportunity to kind of grab that low drafted guy at the end of the draft, because we've seen outside of Kelce, there's no consistency to where the targets, where the routes run are going for the rest of the Kansas City players. I mean, yeah, Kadarius Toney had 5 receptions last week, but he did it on 12 routes run, a ridiculously low number. That could easily be the person who ends up getting the touchdown, the deep play, whether it's MVS, whether Hardman is healthy, whether it's going to be a Gray or a Watson, one of those random one-offs. I think that's where, if you have Mahomes, we know that there's that possibility to that he helps one of those fringe players get there. And, as a unique low-owned player in your lineup, I think that's a strong play. I think McKinnon and Pacheco are both fine, not must-haves. We're not seeing McKinnon in the role that we saw him last year. It is what it is. It's fine. Okay, Cincy. I don't think it's as substantial as the Purdy aspect because we know Burrow can run, but I think this is definitely still a place where you want to stack, possibly double there. Historically, people are scared to do a Higgins and a Chase in DFS because there's been just very, very few times that they've actually both hit. Wiggins talked about this in one of the recent pods as well. And I think it's probably more of just a bit of an outlier variant situation. In the right game environment, could very much see both of those going off. And I think Hayden Hurst, though, is another complimentary piece. Should have had 2 touchdowns last week. Had that one, and then on one of the few balls that Burrow didn't throw well, he barely overthrew Hurst. Hurst was wide open right at the goal line. Would have had an easy touchdown there. Happy to do a double stack with the tight end and wide receiver there as well. I'll get into uniqueness in a second, but an interesting there as well as I also don't hate. I wouldn't really want to stack Mixon and Pirine with Burrow. Mixon, in the year had a substantial, I think his best year as a pass catcher. But we're not seeing as much of it the last couple games. Maybe it's fluky, but even I think he had a 9 reception game 3 ago or something, either 9 targets and 9 receptions, but the yardage really isn't there. They're not that high value plays that we were seeing earlier in the season. So I'm not as excited to stack Burrow with one of the running backs. But if you don't get Burrow, I think a very viable thing for this team is to go with something like a Mixon and a Higgins, or a Mixon and a Chase, where you don't need the QB. Both of those two, similar to how we saw in the past with Justin Jefferson and Dalvin both getting there in certain weeks, or Josh Jacobs and Devontae Adams. I think we could very much see that with a Mixon and either Chase or Higgins situation. Okay, before we jump into draft, one more thing I'll touch on, which I think is important, is that idea of ways to get unique. We talk a lot about this throughout the year. I think some of those still apply, but specific to this one. So first one, obviously going for that guy that's just not being drafted much. We don't know who they are, but we can take some strong guesses based off projections. And the more drafts you do, the more you'll see who's not getting drafted. I think it makes sense to bring some in. And don't worry about forcing the correlation. I think, yes, with the Kansas City, that one-off makes sense. But I think, hey, when we're going for these one-off pieces in such a small 2-game sample size, we're kind of just hoping to kind of get a little lucky with those last pieces. 2 tight ends. I think this is a very unique one, where most people are kind of saying, hey, I got my 1 tight end and I'm done. Why I like this is, for the most part, you're not actually giving up substantial points when you take 2 tight ends here. And you're adding uniqueness to it because, as I mentioned, like Hayden Hurst is a better flex option than the majority of others that are kind of going around him than if you were to try to get like that second running back or third wide receiver. Then if you want to get, not many people are going to say, hey, I'm going to go Kelsey and Kittle or Kelsey and Goddard or Kittle and Goddard in the same game. And because now, yes, you're giving up a little projections because you've got to reach a little to get that one of those top 3 tight ends. But I think you're gaining value in the uniqueness aspect. And the last one is the one that I was talking about earlier. I think that running back and wide receiver tight end combo thing without the QB, people in general don't want to do it in DFS. They don't want to do it in these either. But I think there is value on it because you're getting a little leverage with the run. You're getting a little leverage off of the QB stack because so many of these teams are going to have Burrow and Chase. It falls pretty easily to get it falls decently easy to get those. There's going to be a ton of Burrow Chase. There's going to be a good amount of Kelsey Mahomes. You're going to have a bunch of Hurts and either Devonta or A.J. Brown. So because we know that so many teams will have those combos, maybe actually if you were to do that Mixon and Jamar Chase, Mixon ends up with 2 touchdowns, has a good game. Jamar Chase still has 100 and a touchdown. But now, while those are great games for those two, Burrow missed out on those 2 touchdowns that Mixon had. So you're getting you're getting ahead of the field you're getting ahead of the field because you've gotten so well from the running back. And while majority of people who had the Chase also had the Burrow aspect. So another thing to consider there. Okay, that's a lot. I'll look through some of the comments, some of the questions that we have here, and I will jump in a draft in a couple minutes. Okay. Looking through. Yes, Joe, these are just for Sunday, correct? This does not go to the Super Bowl. This is just for this week, the conference championships. Okay. Yeah, Carlos, thanks for helping out there. Andrew, Underdog dropped a new Battle Royale 3-man. Would Purdy be a good contrarian pick considering he should go undrafted in these? I had not seen this tournament, but strategically, yeah, that makes complete sense. I mean, how comfortable is it? Like, in general sense, why would I want to take Brock Purdy when I could get Mahomes or Burrow or Jalen Hurts? Well, you want to do it because you can get unique. And so if you're doing a DFS contest, and also the value of DFS. We think of DFS, we think of, the price of, I haven't looked at the slates this week for either of the sites, but let's make it up and say Mahomes would be 8,100, Hurts would be 8,000, and Burrow would be 7,500, and Purdy would be 6,000. In that scenario, Purdy is probably still the lowest owned of the group, but it's probably fairly spread out because you're getting the savings of Purdy there. So maybe you're getting 15% own Purdy, and you're saving $1,500 to use elsewhere. Think of that with these drafts. Well, with the drafts, if we're taking Purdy, now we're probably getting Purdy at instead of 15%, this might be 5-10%. It's definitely a lot lower number, I believe. And the savings that we see from a DFS standpoint at $1,500 is that you don't have to draft a QB until the very end because you can now, you're going to go with Purdy. So use that as your final pick. The others are probably going to be I haven't seen these drafts. Are they fighting? My guess is that you're going to see a lot of these QBs going in the second round because people want to make sure that if they got Kelsey, they get the Mahomes stack partner. If they got Chase, they want to get the Burrow stack partner. And you're like, let them fight. I'm just going to go with my elite players, grab those, and then I'll grab my Purdy at the very end. Okay. Any thoughts on the Battle Royale Blitz that just came out? I'm assuming maybe that's the same thing that Andrew's talking about. If not, put it in chat. I haven't looked into it. Maybe we can, if it is different. But no, I haven't seen anything. All right, Taylor, we haven't really seen San Francisco trailing, but Debo Kittle could be fun if they have to throw to catch Philly. Yeah, for sure. And I mean, so if I'm doing Kittle and Ayuk, I'm definitely like, hey, I want Purdy to be my guy, because for Kittle and Ayuk to get there, it means Purdy probably has a pretty good game as well. Debo Kittle is also a little more interesting because Debo obviously can get it done on the ground too. So maybe Debo Kittle is actually kind of the mix between what we were talking about with like the Mixon and Chase aspect. That's possible. But yeah, I mean, if San Francisco is trailing, if Philly can put up 28 points in the first half, like we've seen them do so many times before, yes, obviously Giants D and other teams' Ds are not the same as San Francisco, but yes, it very much could happen. What could that look like on the passing game for San Francisco? We may see CMC with 10 plus receptions. We may see a lot more willingness to kind of let the ball fly a little, get under it with Ayuk going deep. So think through what those games could look like. And again, also, if San Francisco is trailing, maybe that Kenneth Gainwell could be a good final piece, or at least Miles Sanders to help, help getting them there to their points. Okay, and are you maxing to just one-off play? For example, is taking too low and plays like Noah Gray and Boston Scott going too far? It's probably too far from me. In normal Battle Royale, I like doing 2 one-off plays because the one-off plays are guys like, I don't know, Zay Jones, Christian Kirk. Some weeks it was Tyler Lockett. Like, those were the quality of guys who weren't being drafted. And so, yeah, I'm fine taking 2 of those because I know those guys still have substantial upside. Noah Gray and Boston Scott, like, they're just so ugly like that. I think it's already low likelihood for one of those to be able to put up like a 14 point, something like that. Like if you look at, like, basically has to be a touchdown. And now we're saying we need to grab 2 of them. I don't think the value of grabbing 2 makes up for the substantial loss in projections and ceiling projections. But hey, if somehow Noah Gray and Boston Scott both had 2 touchdowns, maybe you just turned $5 into 25,000. So, okay. Keep the questions coming. Right now, I will jump into an Underdog Royale battle. Underdog Royale. A Battle Royale. But, yeah, we will do. So this is a Battle Royale Blitz that you guys were talking about. 3-person drafts. Cool. Maybe we'll try to wing it. Let's do one of these first. Jump in. And then afterwards, maybe we can wing it and try one of those blitz ones. I've not done any. I've not looked at the rules or anything, but happy to kind of talk through. Okay, we go see a couple familiar names. Hochberg, how you doing? Okay. Looking. Yeah, Jawan Jennings and Gainwell. Jawan Jennings and Gainwell, I think, is a bit more realistic than Noah Gray and Boston Scott, because, I guess Jawan Jennings is a bit more of a full-time player than Noah Gray for the Chiefs. Gainwell, we've at least seen it happen before. Obviously, like, there's still that scenario, Miles Sanders get hurt and stuff. So maybe I'd be more willing with a Jawan Jennings Gainwell than a Noah Gray Boston Scott. And I do like that Jawan Jennings and Gainwell has that level of correlation. Maybe like, hey, Eagles did get up pretty early. They need to use Gainwell. Jawan Jennings they're throwing. Jawan Jennings has a bit more of a role. That's possible. Okay. So My right here are the ETR ranks. So that's what I am basing off. As I mentioned, there's no ADP, but as I go through, I do still like to keep an eye on, how our projections differ from what we're seeing from the actual projections, because that'll help us there. Okay. We could go Mahomes, Kelsey. We could go McCaffrey, Kelsey. A bit more unique. Thinking. Let's go Mahomes. Let's go McCaffrey, Kelsey. I think this is probably a bit more of a unique build because I think most people in this situation are saying, "Hey, I've got Kelsey. I'm going to go Mahomes." It's definitely interesting without having the ADP. Hard to really know, well, where is Kelsey predominantly getting drafted? Where's McCaffrey predominantly getting drafted? So we're taking a little bit of a guess on trying to find unique combos from an ADP wise, because normally if we know one player's ADP is 1.5, another player's ADP is 2.1, if you're somehow able to get both those players, we know it's very unique because they're most likely getting drafted 1, 2, if not 3 overall. Here, we don't know where they're really getting drafted unless you do a ton of these and track it. But we do know that majority of times if you get Kelsey, you probably want to grab Mahomes. We also have the unique aspect with this Mahomes where, hey, if he crazily was to fall to us, we could take him here. Otherwise, we're perfectly happy with Hertz because we've got the McCaffrey and we can build for that structure as well. Okay. Taking a look real quick, what do we have from other teams going on? So we have the Hertz, Smith with the Higgins one-off. Burrow missed out on his Chase stack. Did not go for the Higgins on the bring back. So we'll see. Interesting what's going to happen here. Is it more of a one-off team? Debo definitely seems to be a bit more of a just, spray and pray kind of team. Okay, Mahomes did go there. A little unfortunate, but, a little to be expected as well. We are going to be going with a San Francisco. So I'm thinking Miles Sanders and Brandon Ayuk here. I don't really want to grab McKinnon when we have Kelsey and we're not going to have Mahomes. Miles Sanders gives us a bit of a bring back when we're going for a full game stack with the Hertz. With the Purdy, McCaffrey, and Brandon Ayuk. So let's go ahead and grab that. Unless we wanted to go Kittle or Ayuk. We have no wide receivers. Wide receiver really gets ugly. I did like the kind of uniqueness of grabbing a Kittle there, but wide receiver gets really ugly. Let's grab Brandon Ayuk instead. Maybe we could have grabbed Kittle, and maybe this is where the ADP is challenging. What was his projection here? His projection, I don't know if we're able to see. Here we go. With 11.4. Maybe he could have fallen back to us. Probably not. He probably still wouldn't have. But yeah, that's definitely where the projections are difficult. It's but also, would we have wanted to go Kittle, Ayuk, and McCaffrey? Probably not. So I'm okay with it. I could have seen either one playing out there. Oh, never mind. I'm dumb. We can't. We're not even able to grab a running back. We're not even able to grab a tight end because we already have 2 running backs here. That's weird that tight end still shows up as available. Also, Mike, I'm going to try to do a quick refresh because we're missing out on the positions there. Yeah, maybe that was a little just of a... I got to check something. Is anybody else? Okay, I got to check the rules or something because theoretically, assuming I have the rules right, that you can only do 1 running back, 2 wide receivers, 1 tight end, and 1 flex, I shouldn't be able to draft a second tight end here. Because I need a wide receiver and I need a QB. We're gonna play with something real quick. Okay, so here we go. Obviously, we need the QB, but would it let me? Is it only 1 wide receiver? Okay. We'll figure this out afterwards. We know we're gonna grab Purdy, so I'll put that in the queue while we think. Maybe it's one of each, and I have something wrong, and because it's telling me I can draft a running back too. Maybe I had the rules wrong. My apologies if so. I'm gonna have to look back and read those. Um, take the Purdy, and now we can draft one more. I thought it had to be a wide receiver, but we're gonna have some. We're gonna see if I can do something different. Let's go Kenneth Gainwell if I'm allowed to do this. If not, we're gonna likely just end up with Juju. You have already filled that position. That's what I thought. Why are you showing me this? This is different. Okay. That is not what Underdog normally does. We're gonna late grab a Juju. That is interesting. Okay. So normally, once you draft a QB, it doesn't even show the QBs anymore and wouldn't let you even like see them. And it grays it out. And same thing. Once I had two running backs, it honestly should have grayed out the running back and the tight end here. I don't know if that's maybe just a bug or missing something, but let me see what chat is saying. Okay, I'm reading through chat. Yeah, can't do Kittle 3-position limit. That's super strange. I wonder what would have happened. Doesn't let you draft. Shows can't pick them. It still shows on desktop, not in the app. Okay, so maybe that's what it is. The positions don't go away on desktop, only on mobile. Okay, thanks. Thank you. That shows like I do almost all my drafting other than on streams on my phone, but that is what led to a little bit of confusion there. So yes, could not have gone Kittle anyways. Once we had the running backs, let's take a quick look at that team. Obviously, a bit of a wonky situation at the end there, but we ended up with okay. So we got our Purdy to McCaffrey to Ayuk with the Miles Sanders bring back. On the other side, we have Kelsey and Juju as the only ones from that game. We didn't really end up with a one-off not being drafted player. I think this kind of like I didn't really want to go with the Juwan Jennings when we already have Ayuk and McCaffrey. Just seems like that's probably like just a little too much, it's a little too heavy in the San Francisco. Maybe if I had more time, we didn't freak out. I would have tried to find a little better of a one-off wide receiver piece, but I'm okay with it. Also, I do wonder how much is Juju being drafted. Like we know he has substantial upside from earlier in the year, but we haven't seen it. Maybe that 8.2 is not getting him drafted as much. I don't know. Interesting there. Okay. Chat, let me know. We're going to do one more of the same ones that we just did. Because yeah, I haven't looked at the Battle Royale Blitz, the 3-person ones at all. So I don't want to, I think it'd be more valuable if we do one of these again. That was interesting. Yeah, just click positions you need to show. I mean, yeah, obviously there's lots of solutions. Also, I can just know not to draft that. It is just, it's great functionality in the app because, hey, once I drafted that second running back, it would have let me know I'm done with running back. I'm done with tight end. I just needed to focus on wide receivers. Of course, it's on me. But just was a little thrown off because I'm so used to the great functionality in the app. Maybe that's something they can add to desktop in the near future. Okay. We've got 3 no badges competing against us in this one. Let's see what we're able to pull out here. Any other thoughts, any other questions, any other strategy that you guys are implementing for this week? Throw them in chat. Happy to kind of, love to read them. And then happy to kind of react to them as well if you got any questions there. That's good. Okay. Yeah, like looking at the projections and stuff, Jalen Hurts at 28 is so much higher than the rest. That's pretty crazy. We have like ETR ranks has Jalen Hurts QB1, but it is not that much of a gap. Like going against San Francisco, it is not the dream matchup. We could go McCaffrey. Chase goes there, so we're not going to do that. We could go Kelsey. Let's go with Kelsey this time. And because we can likely get Mahomes on the comeback there, the only way we don't is if this person decides to go with a weird Mahomes and McCaffrey combo, which I guess is possible. But we'll start off with the Kelsey. And if we don't get Mahomes, do we want to grab Burrow? I don't hate it. I could see us doing. I mean, we have Kelsey. I think Kelsey Burrow's probably a bit more on the uniquer side to start off of the draft. To start off with the draft, and then we can still build a game stack there. We could probably still get a T. Higgins later on. Maybe get Hayden Hurst as the double tight end. Okay, well, we'll grab the Mahomes. Make that easy. And we'll see what we can build around this Kansas City. Burrow is likely, so Burrow falls the guy with Chase. So props to him. He's going to get that one after starting early with the Chase aspect. We'll see how strong he actually goes with the Cincinnati stack, or whether or not we're able to kind of steal a piece or two. One thought is he's probably going to want to grab Hayden Hurst with all of them are available. We'll see. We'll see if we want to jump the gun to grab interesting. So he grabs Kittle there. Okay. We have let's grab T. Higgins as a bring back. And as I mentioned, how ugly we know Cincinnati gets. This person has a McCaffrey and A.J. Brown. A bit of an interesting start. I mean, obviously, you get the bring back and stuff. They'll most likely be going. I mean, they're going to be going with Purdy later. Let's grab T. It's a little higher on the projection side than Debo, and gives us our bring back for the Chiefs. So if we want to think of ways we can get unique with this lineup, we still have that Hayden Hurst aspect and making a bit more of just a full game stack. We did grab T. Higgins, so it's not really a necessity, just because we already have a bring back. We could go Dallas Goedert here just to get the uniqueness. I kind of like that right now. Looking at from a running back situation, Callie has who just went? Brandon. Okay. Callie has one running back. Steve-O does not have any. We'd be fine with a McKinnon. We'd be okay with a Miles Sanders and the Goddard. It kind of gives us, as we were talking about, that combo. Let's grab Dallas Goedert here to get uniqueness with our tight ends, that double tight end build. We're already in the ugly wide receiver territory. So no point in jumping right now to grab someone. This just shows how quick it does get ugly at wide receiver in these. All right. Callie went with a 2 running back start here. Okay. So this might put a little pressure on Steve. It'll be interesting to see what they end up going with. Personally, I'd prefer McKinnon because the pass catcher from Mahomes, I think, is basically his projection is around 4 catches. 4 catches, maybe 50 or 60 total yards, including the rushing. But McKinnon goes there. I don't hate if we end up grabbing an Isaiah Pacheco. If we end up missing out on that, let's see, how many running backs have been taken? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. All right. Bills Qs cannot take a running back because they're already full there. Oh, they can't take a wide receiver either because they're full there. So no harm. We're more confident that we know we want the Isaiah Pacheco. We'll go with Pacheco here, and then we're going to grab a wide receiver with the next one. Because we're grabbing Pacheco, it kind of makes me less likely to want to grab the one-off Kansas City players like Juju, Tony, and Marquez. Maybe this is like the Jawan Jennings is the bring back to Goddard. Oh, it's ugly. Chat, tell me what do we do here? What do we do? Oh, it's a lot of Chiefs. If we go with another one. I really do not have a great feel for what we want to do. Jawan Jennings just feels so ugly. Let's do Tony. Not getting that much. Why I kind of chose Tony at the end there is because Tony can get there on low volume. We know he's not running that many routes. So like if he has a good day, it doesn't have to be at the expense of like Pacheco or Kelsey or something. They just manufacture him some of those larger plays, so we can maybe hope, wish cast that Tony ends up having like a big play, breaks one, and still gets there in this lineup. This is probably a little too many Chiefs for what I would like to do in these situations. Trying to think back. Let's go back to it. Why isn't it showing up yet? Let's see if we refresh. There we go. All right. I was trying to think back to the board for what we maybe could have done differently. Maybe could have grabbed like Miles Sanders. I think we would have. I'm trying to think who we would have had to do it above. I think it might have been Dallas Goedert. Then that would have given us a little more flexibility to grab that Tony, and now it's a double, more traditional double stack. Maybe it is just a Kansas City onslaught. T. Higgins bring back, and this is literally what I was talking about. We're like, hey, the Philly, San Francisco is just low scoring. Goddard's the one-off. Again, I'm okay with this team. I don't love it. Shows how difficult and how lack of depth there is at the wide receiver position this week. Okay. This is fun. This was fun. We're coming up on our 45 minutes. Got to do 2 drafts in. Thanks everyone for the questions and being here for chat. If if this is new to anyone, if you are not currently a member of Underdog, if you haven't played yet, you can still join. It is not too late. You can sign up now, use promo code ETR, and you will get a $100 deposit match bonus. And then you can join us in the fun. I think we'll probably end up doing one more of these before the Super Bowl, kind of a wrap up, kind of a see what they put out for that Super Bowl contest and see if we can get kind of some fun strategy angles. Other than that, thanks everyone all year for coming out. This has been fantastic. Yes, one last question. You taking any Hardman? I haven't yet, but I don't dislike it because I think you can draft him, and if he doesn't play, you can still swap to someone else. So I like that aspect. My concern is that he may actually be healthy to be out there, but then not running many. They're not going to push him, so that's why I don't love it. But yeah, if you wanted to mix in a couple, also it goes like his projection. I think was like 9 or 8.7, 9.2, something around that. I'd be really curious to know like how often he is being drafted in these. So if you're doing enough of them, maybe like you see, hey, he's not being drafted at all. Now it makes more sense. If you see he's being drafted basically at all, if he is being drafted, I'm not getting uniqueness value on him, then I probably don't want any of him at all. There's that. Okay, this was fun. Thanks everyone. Again, as I was saying, all year, appreciate it. I'll continue to kind of keep insights coming. We are almost to off season, which best ball is going to start. So if you are not, follow me on Twitter at Justin Herzig. Once best ball season, right after Super Bowl, best ball season is going to start, and there's going to be the pre-draft one, which they usually call the big board. There's just going to be so much tournaments. I'll be, head first in all throughout. Cheers. Appreciate you all, and have a great rest of your Thursday and the weekend. See you later.